You are listening to the Effective Statistician podcast, a weekly podcast with Alexander Schacht and Benjamin Pieske designed to help you reach your potential, lead great science, and serve patients without becoming overwhelmed by work. This is episode number 72, How to Become a Leader in a Cross-Functional Team. Leadership is really important, and we talk in this episode about it. But we also have an upcoming webinar on leadership where you can learn even more about it. And theeffectivestatistician.com/leadership webinar is the place where you can sign up for this webinar. So just go there, tell your colleagues about it, and come there. It will be awesome. There was so much great feedback we got from the last webinars that we did about it, and I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot about it. In this episode, we are also talking about leadership, because leadership is really, really important for you as a statistician to be effective. You need to be good in influencing your partners in your teams, whether it's about a better design that you want to do, about changes in the analysis plans. There's always something that you need to convince people about, and here you can learn so much about it. So sign up for the leadership webinar, listen to this episode, and enjoy it. This podcast is created in association with PSI, a global member organization dedicated to leading and promoting best practice and industry initiatives. Join PSI today to further develop your statistical capabilities with access to the video-on-demand content library, free registration to all PSI webinars, and much, much more. The reduced membership fee is just £20 per year for non-high income countries and £95 for high income countries. Visit the PSI website at psiweb.org to learn more about PSI activities and become a PSI member today. This show was created in association with PSI. Thanks for listening. Please visit theeffectivestatistician.com to find the show notes and learn more about our podcast to boost your career as a statistician in the health sector. And don't forget to sign up for the webinar. You will learn about lots of the things that we discussed in this episode and much, much more. So reach your potential, lead great science, and serve patients. Just be an effective statistician. Welcome to another episode of The Effective Statistician. And this time it's again Benjamin and myself. Hi Benjamin, how are you doing?
Hi Alexander. Well, yeah, good. Got an interesting topic today, so I'm really curious how we proceed here.
Yeah, one of the 4 pillars that we very often talk about in this podcast about leadership, innovation, knowledge, and excellence. Today, it's a topic more about leadership. And, it's really about leading in these cross-functional teams. Because, most of statisticians lead in work in teams where, there's not necessarily a defined leader, but it's kind of the situations that you have experts from different functions, and everybody brings their expertise to the table, physician, maybe someone from pharmacology, and someone clinical operations, data manager, lots of different people that come to the team with different expertise, and there's not naturally, a defined leader. And there is this interesting term, not sure whether you heard about it. It's called nomadic leadership. So it's about that, the leadership basically is not assigned to a single person, but basically it jumps to the different team players based on their expertise, based on how they are driving forward the team.
All the team players are once in a while leading, depending on what they're talking about at the moment or what topic it is about.
Yeah, what the topic is. And so you can basically, assume this leadership as a statistician when it's about really kind of statistical things. Or if there is if you see a lack of leadership, if things are drifting and drifting and drifting and you're not coming to a point and you think like, well, not everybody is really included in this discussion. There's maybe points missing here, or that, there's maybe even people arguing with each other on a maybe not very logical point. So I think there is lots of potential for statisticians to lead, because we as statisticians have the ability to structure problems, to understand kind of where is the deeper cause. We have the ability to think rationally and logically and kind of divide bigger problems into smaller pieces that we can solve. And we shouldn't see that as something that is easy for everybody, because it's not.
Yeah, you touched a very good point. I mean, actually, I disagree with one of the points that when what you mentioned earlier is that they said that there's, sometimes there's no leader. Usually, always there's a leader. And in a way, it may be a natural leader. Let's say somebody who's just leading everything that comes on his desk. And others is sometimes that people are, somebody is calling for this meeting, so having an urgency to do something to get some result. So there's usually, what I know in most of the cases, there's somebody who is basically leading or trying to lead. However, what you mentioned at the last point is that I think the nature of statisticians, mathematicians, it's like it's just the structural thinking, the way of putting problems into combining with logic and structure. That is really something where I say we do have an advantage to many other areas or other people, and therefore it's an advantage for the group as well, if you do take the lead and you support the group moving forward.
Yeah, I think there is two kinds of leadership. There's so-called assigned leadership and there's emergent leadership. Assigned leadership is basically you have a title, you're the project lead or whatever, you're the leader, the assigned leader. Yeah, but by your role. And but there's also this emergent leadership, that you become a leader because you're asking the right questions, you're having the network, your people trust you, and that's this more, let's say, actually more natural leadership style, where you convince people through your actions, you inspire them, and they say, follow your direction, just because they think, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, they're convinced, they are inspired by you. That's more kind of the leadership I'm talking about.
It's not about taking the minutes. It's not about talking the most. It's really about, as you said, asking the right questions or giving answers and being heard.
Yeah. And where I very often see, that statisticians kind of think they are natural followers. Yeah, so they think I'm just here to provide my statistical expertise. Not surprisingly, I see that especially kind of in more junior statisticians that haven't had the chance to develop these kind of leadership skills. But the I think we need to get out of these kind of, pure following style. I think, following is great and everybody needs to be a good follower, because I think you can't be a good leader if you're not also a good follower. But I think seeing these opportunities to step up will create a lot of more job satisfaction and will help you to stand out, will help you to make sure that, when it's time, people listen to you. I think, if you're always seen as just the follower, the implementer, and then, there's an important thing, maybe a discussion about, design or, multiplicity or whatsoever, where you really want to make a point, you can't, because people just don't see you as a person that, leads and takes a position.
Yeah. It's the problem is that you will be seen as a follower.
Yeah.
Not a leader. So even if you answer a question, that might be a side note.
Yeah.
And actually, if you just continue to be a follower, I mean, obviously you don't train yourself to lead. I mean, this is also about how to lead, and how, you can't be, you shouldn't be satisfied in the role of always following, but need to be taking the step forward. I mean, it might take time. One is more natural there and the other is not, but it might take, it's the next step to really lead, to be heard.
And I think it's also important to kind of train that. It's, for many of us, it doesn't come natural. And so it requires training. And like with everything, you need to train in order to kind of be prepared when really important things are coming up. It's kind of, with a marathon, you're training and training and training so you can perform when it's time, to perform, to run. Yeah. And similar here as a leader, you need to train and train and train, because you don't know when will come the time when you actually need to lead. Yeah, when stakes are high and when, it's really critical for you as a statistician to step up. So that's where the analogy with a marathon is not so good, because with a marathon usually it's planned when it's coming, but in real life you don't know when it's coming. So you need to consistently train for that and make small steps, learn, and through that kind of lead things. But we also want to talk a little bit about what things you can do to actually be better prepared to lead. And one thing that I think is really important is that you have a clear goal for the overall project. Best it's in a written form. And that it's really clear for you how does success look like for this project. I have seen many kind of projects where people come in and they argue and argue and argue, because everybody has a different understanding of what success looks like. Yeah, so one person might say, well, the most important thing is we are within budget, no matter what. The other person might say, well, the most important thing is we are in time. Or the third person might think, well, I don't care about time and money. We need to develop, come back with a good scientific answer, and, money and time we can, negotiate. So it's really important to have this kind of clear goal for you, and to check that this is also clear for the others.
Yeah, that's true, definitely. Yeah, but I think for leading in a specific situation, it is also very important to be aware of what success looks like for this meeting for this very specific task, very specific item that is being discussed. Because I've experienced it very often, and just a matter of time. It happens to me as well. Is that you get unprepared into a meeting, and that's actually the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
Because if you don't prepare a meeting in this case and don't have a goal for the meeting, I mean, you can't lead. How should you be able to lead? So that's why it's not only the project itself. I mean, that's important as well, or like part of the project that to define the success, but also about a very specific piece of the task where you should be leading.
And I think that is actually a first nice opportunity to lead, to ask for the simple question when you get into a meeting and there's pretty unclear for you at least what a good outcome for the meeting is. You can ask at the beginning of the meeting before people, dive into details, what success does look like for this meeting. What do we want to achieve here?
What's your goal?
And sometimes you'll be surprised about how different the answers are. So that is leadership. Yeah, so it's a good example for that. Leading is very often not about giving the right answers, but asking the right questions.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, I was just going to say, well, if you talk about success for a meeting or project, but success isn't defined of what you think is success. I mean, it's also very important that you know who's in there. So, I mean, we're talking about cross-functional teams, and how can you create situations where everyone wins? Or at least the ones that you are working together with or would like to create win-win situations. So to understand the different priorities and really see how can we make it a success? Because even if you're leading and you know what your success or what the success for you would be in a meeting or a project, that doesn't mean that it will be a successful project, because if everyone else is blocking, you have no chance either. So there need to be win-win situations for you and for your for the other function.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that, it's really important to, have a good relationship with all the different people. So what their goals are, what their supervisors are constantly asking them for. Know what's on their mind. And if you have that, then you can create these win-win situations. It's really important to invest in these situations. And, I think I've talked multiple times about that already. With Gary Sullivan, we talked about that. With Julia Carter, we talked about that. So just scroll back in your episode, and when you step over these names, you can have a look into that. There's also an episode with Julia Carter about impactful presenting. That's a different topic, but there's lots about these kind of episodes. Have a look into that in terms of building a relationship with people. So creating win-win situations is, of course, the best case scenario in these kind of negotiations. But being a savvy negotiator can also help a lot. There's actually quite nice trainings about that, with, different schools of training, more maybe the theoretical, logical school. Since there's another interesting school that is more about the let's say, emotional, so to say, in Daniel Kahneman's word, fast thinking school of training, which is quite interesting. It's really about, making sure everybody gets on board with it, because if you have these kind of situations where people get sidelined, that's usually a bad outcome.
Yeah, it is, because these people will be fighting in different ways in the background or whatever to get back on track and with their leadership and so on. So if you, so this will at the end fall back, and push down the success of the project. Or
I can vividly remember one situation where I was sitting in a meeting, I was in a study team with two others, a physician and someone from clinical operations. We were not aligned, and so we were kind of arguing and discussing in front of our kind of director of how to pursue. And then I made the point, well, I can do this, but then I can't do these kind of other things. And then the director said, well, these other things are more important. Okay. I won the argument. Guess what happened?
Yeah, I mean, this is the worst situation ever if a team comes into a meeting or into a situation where they are fighting about details and they haven't been agreed on this before coming into the same meeting.
Yeah, I won the argument, but I lost the war. Yeah, so it had quite some, backfired quite heavily thereafter. Yeah,
I do know these situations.
So let's coming back to this point about leadership is very often about asking the right questions. I need to say I'm personally sometimes not very good at it, because if I think I have the answer, I might kind of directly jump to it and blurt it out and move on. But yeah, that's actually not always the most clever things to do.
No, it's not, and it's also that the it's not received very well either by the listeners or by the ones that you are arguing and negotiating with. No, that's true. It's if you have to be thoughtful about what you say, how you say it, and so on. So not just blurt out, but
yeah,
absolutely.
So and if you tell something, it's better to have that in a conversational tone, so people can more easily accept it. Yeah, so it doesn't need to be kind of in this authoritarian tone or top-down tone.
Yeah.
It's if you however want to just make a point and get that off the table, make a calm statement and say, okay.
Yeah, calm statement is a good one, because one of the points really is that you pause before you say. So just not blur, but pause. No, I mean, seriously, it's just nice. So don't interrupt. Just pause, give it a chance, and then.
So if it's, for example, about you can speak about further kind of pushing in terms of multiplicity, you can just say multiplicity is like it is. It's we have solved this problem. Point. Move on. Yeah. So that is kind of not telling in an aggressive way. The other thing is sometimes it's really good to stay curious, because sometimes seen that also in meetings where someone is jumping to a conclusion or jumping to a question before completely understanding the problem. It's I don't know whether that is because we are so much trained to kind of think in solutions that we very, very fast go to these solutions, or why this is the case, or maybe it's the urgency to kind of get rid of it and move on. But I very often see this kind of behavior, and to be honest, I'm probably kind of doing it myself quite often, is this jumping to the solution too fast.
Yeah, and then also questions do help to create win-win situations.
Yeah.
I mean, with questions, you can also get people involved to answer the question where you may have the answer yourself, or maybe not exactly yet, but at least you involve the people that you would like to get or in the boat. So therefore, this is the easiest way to give the direction, to lead, but actually to involve the people and give them the feeling that they answered the question and made the conclusion.
Yeah, and then it's their solution. That's the best way you can gain alignment. If you think you have the solution and you let the other person come up with the idea. So of course that's not always the case if you speak about kind of really difficult statistical things, but and you're talking to a non-statistician, but generally I think it's a very, very good way of leadership about to
asking questions and giving the direction of this question is one of the key ways of getting people involved and agreeing to your idea because they actually do.
And these questions could be like, what if XYZ happens? Or have we thought about this side condition? Or have we thought about what that person might say? These kind of questions.
Yeah, or more, what happens if, wouldn't it make sense to do this? So kind of a suggestion into a question. So the answer is yes or no, or, yes, hopefully, because it's a solution, or we hope it's a solution. So therefore, bring them on board and say, yes, that's the one. So that's what they say.
Well, however, I'm a big fan of open-ended questions. That's important. And of course, what comes together with questions is always kind of actively listening. Yeah, so and actively listening is something that is actually much more difficult than I previously thought, because you need to kind of really listen to the person and not constantly think about what you want to say next, but really listen. Just listen. Yeah, it's much harder than you would think, Did you know that the FBI actually usually has a couple of people on the phone if they negotiate with, a hostage taker or whatsoever? They not have just one person on the line who speaks, but they have then several other people that also listen to kind of get everything, because listening is so hard.
No, I didn't know, but from the movies, that they're always listening. Everyone is listening in the team. But makes sense. Yeah.
So it's training listening, and listening in a way that you're actively listening, and not just kind of preparing your answer in the head is really an art.
Yeah. But this is actually twofolded, and both in the positive way. Actually, is one advantage is, as you said, that it's really understanding the other person, but it's also the other way around. If the person talking sees you listening, actively listening, so really that you're trying to understand what he's saying, to understand his maybe background, emotions, whatsoever, that's a buy-in from your side. So that is basically one of the bases to create these situations where we said win-win. So where the sympathy is increasing, if you don't know that person that much before, so that you really give that person the chance to say something and to be actively heard. So it's a very important piece as well.
Yeah. And through that, you can, understand their goals, what we discussed before. You can, create these win-win situations. And when you see then these win-win situations, as a leader, you need to make sure that you can then nail it down. I don't know. I very often get out of meetings where, in the end, I think, are we really crystal clear on who does what by when now? It's kind of, sometimes it's a little bit vague. I don't know how you think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's especially because then if you write it down, you suddenly have other thoughts and realize maybe we haven't considered this, or, if you do the minutes after it, or just send out a summary or whatever. That is very, very tricky. But anyway, I mean, if you have this question to a specific person or topic, just pick up the phone and call that person, or just talk to him. Says, did I, just finalize it afterwards. So that's not a problem, but really do it, because if you send out, or if you provide information that is incorrect or half the truth, that might be a problem later on.
And I think that's another point of leadership, making sure things are crystal clear at the end. It's, following up on the actions, maybe even, setting up, as you said, further one-to-ones, another meeting, and get involved in that. I've seen instances where people, then took the task to write the minutes, and through that actually provided lots of leadership. Yeah, because through that, then they kind of formulated things in such a way that it was crisp and clear for everybody, and through that really drove things forward, and that's also part of being a leader.
Yeah. We had an episode about this. Going to meetings. I don't remember what the name of the episode was or what number, but we discussed this already. That there's a lot of activities that can make a meeting or a particular meeting to a success if you prepare and also do the work afterwards, minutes, etc.
Yeah, but basically, for the topic for today, it's about these cross-functional collaborations. So it's about, making sure everybody is clear on the next steps, and then following up on the next steps, holding people accountable for it, and yourself, following up on things. That is what makes a good leader. Okay, so with that, I think it's clear for you what you can do to become a leader in cross-functional meetings. And I hope you didn't get the perception that it's about becoming the AA of the of these meetings, the administrative assistant. It's really much more than that. It's about asking the right questions. It's about training yourself to speak up. It's about taking the opportunities to lead that show up, so that when it's really critical, you are prepared to speak up. And through active listening, to asking questions, to knowing what's on the mind of the different people, to have good relationships, all these are different things to become a leader in cross-functional teams. Benjamin, any final thoughts?
No, I just admire you for your summaries at the end. I'm really that's amazing, Alexander. How you just put this down. Do you take notes?
Well, of course we have our notes for this podcast, but
yeah, but I wouldn't be able. So I do need to take some leadership on this one. No, seriously, I think this is amazing. No other thoughts. Excellent. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. Talk to you next time. Bye.